Roland, at 16, you were living on your own, working at Skate World by day, and playing in a band in the bars and clubs at night. But one day you found some cassettes, The Psychology of Winning. So tell us about Roland before listening to those tapes and Roland after.
Well, I was always fascinated by what my dad did, because we would be in like a grocery store and people would come up and start talking to him and say, hey, I want to get your opinion on this. And I remember he would say, when they left, I'm like, who is that? And he's like, when you're a lawyer, everybody wants free legal advice. And I remember him saying that, and I was like, well, I don't even understand what that is. Tell me about that. And he kind of explained, what he did. And I don't know, I was probably 6, at that time. But it made an impression on me that it was kind of cool that here's this, this guy that can be out just in the normal world at a grocery store, and people are asking him that. And then he did barter deals too, traded legal services for stuff. So like we had some cars. My mom drove a Trans Am for a while because he did a deal with a Pontiac dealership and stuff like that. And I just was like, this is kind of cool. And then as I got exposed to some of the people that were clients, they were all entrepreneurial, and because he did tax work, and that's primarily who he did it with. So I was curious, but I didn't really have any system for knowing about what direction I wanted to take or how to get there or anything like that. And so when I found the cassette tape album of The Psychology of Winning by Dennis Waitley in the back of his car, and happened to pop one of the cassettes in as a newly minted driver, I was like, man, this is cool. And Dennis does such a great job of describing, he's a storyteller. And so he would talk about the 2 people from Harvard that graduated, and one set goals and one didn't. And, the one that set the goals the people in the class that set the goals made more than all of the other people combined in terms of earnings and, and achievement of the goals that they set. And then he talked about working with Olympic athletes and how just closing their eyes and imagining doing reps actually made a significant difference, that power of the mind was the biggest thing that I got from that, and how important it would be to direct your mind towards the attainment of whatever you wanted to, achieve. And so that was kind of it was my first exposure to personal development stuff. And the quest after that becomes endless.
That's incredible. And while you're speaking about your dad, I had this thing pop up in my mind, and I have to ask you about this because I think I got this from you about the friendly advice versus the strategic consult. Mm-hmm. Is that from you?
Yes.
Yes. So can you explain our audience about that? Because that has changed my life recently, because I get a lot of those private messages. So why don't we explain that to our audience?
Yeah. So I have always been somebody that I love what I do. I love helping people. I like people. So I've always had a pretty open dialogue with anybody that wanted to ask about anything. And it never bothered me that people wanted free advice like it bothered my dad, because he was basically working as an attorney, billing by the hour. And so, and I watched it when I practiced law, because I ultimately did practice law for a while, that people would try to kind of slide around the official stuff. But it never, anyway, with business, it never really bothered me. And it still doesn't bother me. So what I found was around November of last year, when I was setting my goals, thank you, Dennis Waitley, for 2020, I was thinking about my time, and, I have income goals, time goals, all those kinds of things. And it was like, I just don't have enough time to do this. I'm spending too much time on these X number of things. One of those things was on social, I would respond, and somebody would be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this deal. What do you think about this? And I would respond, and then I'd either never hear from them again, or I'd talk to them 3 months later and I'd be like, hey, did you ever do the thing that we talked about? Like, oh man, I didn't have time. And I was like, I'm kind of wasting my time. And I'm doing them a disservice as well, because there's no skin in the game for them to listen to me and take me seriously and want to get a return on the investment in working with me. So to stem that tide of direct messages, things that, I just started saying in November of 2019, I said, hey, the way that I do this is I'm happy to give you free advice within the amount of available time that I've got. I don't have a lot of time. And if I answer a question and then you come back and ask for follow-up, which a lot of people do, there's a good chance that I won't be able to respond. But if you want to have a consultation, then here's how that works. The investment, I say, in particular, as opposed to the fee, is $18,000 is what I started at. Now it's 25, and it's only, what, I guess later, a year, 11 months. So I $16,000, and that's for a half day of up to 4 hours, and we'll go over whatever you want to go over. And so I made that decision. I was like, that's what I'm going to do so that I can weed out all the people who aren't going to listen to me anyway, weed out the people that aren't willing to invest in themselves. Because if they aren't willing to invest in themselves this way, then the chances of them actually taking it seriously enough to implement what we talk about is pretty low. And by the way, this also eliminates a whole lot of my time that I spent before. So, so that was really cool. And I remember it was at our War Room Mastermind in Deer Valley in November that I got a message, the first message that I responded that way. And it was a gentleman named Clint Salter from the Dance Studio Owners of America. And he messaged me and said, hey, Roland, I've been following. I didn't know him at all, right? So it was the kind of the ultimate implementation of this. And he said, hey, I got a question for you about this and this and this and this. And I said, the way that I do this is blah, 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 and I figured I'd never hear from him again. And I went and, did the little speaking thing I had to do and came back up to the room. And I checked my Facebook messages, and he was like, okay, where do I wire the money? And I was like, that's interesting. All right, well, I'll send you the agreement. I have a little one-page agreement with the wiring instructions and stuff. I sent it to him. Again, figured I would never hear back. And then he's sent me back. He's like, okay, wired the money. I was like, I checked and it came in. And I was like, all right, let's do this. My first official paid consult. And we met, and I was able to help him quite a bit. And we've gone on to do more things together. And so I just basically started doing that, and I found that it was really effective. And over the course of, I think I've probably done maybe 24 of those or so now in the last year. And I actually raised the price because I was doing too many. And again, what's bad about consulting is that you're building someone else's brand, and you get paid one time, and the things that you share with them, which could be worth, hundreds of thousands or millions in a relatively quick amount of time and in perpetuity, doesn't ever come back to you. So what I decided to do was to kind of modify that a little bit. And now I have the fee raised, but my goal is when I talk to somebody about doing it, if I don't see it as something that I feel I would like to go forward and maybe be an advisor or get some equity in some way, I won't do the consult. And so now I use it really as a filter before looking at becoming an advisor. And I do it when somebody asks also, hey, can you be an advisor in my company? I'll give you some equity. It's like, before we do that, let me see that you invest in yourself and in your company, and let me also get to know the company, but get paid for it. And so it's become kind of a combination of vetting and staging. Vetting so that I don't waste my time and I only deal with people that are serious, and staging so that I'm set up to be, I am good at what I do. When somebody hires me to do something like that, I know I can deliver the value, and then they walk away. And I would say 70% of the time I get an offer to, hey, I'd love to, how do I work with you more? And then that can lead to really cool things. And just recently it was a guy's doing about $1 million a week in his business at a 30% margin. And it was $25K consult. We only spent an hour and a half, and he said, I got it. I've got everything I need. And I'd like to have you part of the company. And so we're in the middle of documenting 10% for me in the company, and that's a company that'll sell for probably $150 million in 2 years. So it's a great way just all across the board to get something for the time that you spend, and also to act as a regulator on the amount of time you spend, because it's very easy to spend all your time building other people's brands for free, and they never do anything, which is the most frustrating thing of all.
I I love that. And all of the people that were wanting the free information, it's like, oh, no sunk cost. I don't have to follow that his advice,
Yeah.
and the framing of investment, and just I think in a lot of services, that's why individuals do that audit, to get the conceptual agreement and that trust and build those
Yeah.
relationships. And you kind of led me right into what I wanted to talk about next was,
Can I just add one little
yeah,
ending to that? But the thing remains that I don't people and you're like, hey, how's it going? You have a normal conversation and they start to ask you about something and they're like, well, here, if you swipe your credit card on my score, that to me, that's not me. There's nothing people that want to do that. That's too transactional for me. So
right.
what was magic for me was that if I have time, which I have very little of now, but if I have time, I'll talk to you about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to ensure that you get what you really should be wanting to get. So that's just a little addition that I think is
Yeah,
important, because it makes you more human.
absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree. And I really wanted to jump in here. You're an expert marketer. You've grown many companies from anywhere from 3 million to nearly $4 billion in value. You're the co-founder of numerous businesses, and recently you started the Epic Challenge. So
Mm-hmm.
what is the Epic Challenge and who is it for?
So the story behind that is that I decided I wanted to kind of share my system for growing companies. And I'm particularly big on leverage. What are the things that you can do that will get you the most leverage to get you the results the fastest? Not as in a hacky kind of way, like, click this button on Facebook type thing, but really strategically. And so at September of 2017, I put together a course that I called Leverage, Exit, Grow, Scale. It should really be Leverage, Grow, Scale, Exit, but that doesn't spell legs. So I wanted something that was an acronym. So I started teaching it in September of 2017, and then taught it several times and evolved it, and it grew and grew and grew. And what I did was I just went back and took over the previous 5 years, and took all the presentations I had and took the things that people had the strongest reaction to of sharing. That really blew my mind. That changed my perspective. I did that thing, and that's the best thing you ever get, by the way, or messages saying, hey man, that thing that you told me, holy goodness, I implemented it and I've had this great result, changed my life. So I was evolving that, and it had gotten to the point where it was about 7 or 8 days of content that I was trying to deliver in 2 days. And so then I started having to take things away and all. So I was in San Diego in March of this year as everything shut down, about to teach that course. And I was teaching it to small groups, like 25 people, $3,000 a piece. And I had to actually send the people home, because it was like they had flown in to do the thing, and the hotel was like, yeah, it's shut down, we can't do it now. So we hung on as long as we could. And I was thinking, gosh, I don't think this is going to last that long, but how do I get the message out during a time when things are shut down? And a friend of mine, Pete Vargas, introduced me to a gentleman named Pedro Adeo, who has since become a friend, who he and Pete had done a bunch of challenges, including for Tony Robbins, and placed really high in sales. And Pedro had done it across, like, in the Christian market, in e-commerce, in info. And so my partner, Ryan Dice, and I were at Grant Cardone's event, 10X, in Las Vegas the week before this. And we were meeting with the people from Infusionsoft Keep about a deal we were doing. And then both Pete and Ryan were speaking at Grant's event. So I just said, and this is something that I find to be really helpful when you travel, if you can, anytime that you're going really anywhere, but particularly if you're going to an event, rent a hospitality suite instead of just a normal room, a room that has a bedroom, but has another room where there are couches and ideally a board table. And when I check in, and I was at the Wynn, when I check in, I say, can you get me a whiteboard and a flip chart up to that room? So I have a hospitality suite. I've got a whiteboard. I've got a flip chart. I'm ready to strategize with anybody anytime. Maybe nobody will come, right? Cool. I'll have my room service at a big board table, right?
Yeah, and
But
I wanted to jump right in too. And if you just said, "Hey, come up to my hotel room," and there wasn't the whiteboard, it would
then it's
just be
kind
a
of
little odd.
weird. Yeah. Yeah. So and that's actually what happened is I ran into Pete at Grant's thing back in the green room, and Pete said, hey, I want you to meet my buddy Pedro. He wants to, be a part of the war room, and we're doing these challenge things. And I was like, why don't you come by? I'd like for you to break this challenge thing down. And I wasn't thinking I was going to do anything with it. I was thinking one of the other companies that I own with Ryan and Richard is called Digital Marketer. And so I was like, this would be perfect for Digital Marketer to do, not even thinking about myself because things hadn't been shut down yet. That was happening 3 days later. So they come by and explain everything, and he, whiteboards it out. That's why it's really important to have the whiteboard. So now, I take a picture of it. I've got everything. And then the world shuts down, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And so I called my marketing guy that I had just hired that week. It was literally moving from Las Vegas, where he lived, to Austin that week. And I said, look, let's do a challenge. And he said, okay, when do you want to do it? And I said, Thursday. And he's like, what the heck? There's no way. What do you mean Thursday? I'm like, I want to do it Thursday. There's no reason we can't just go, and he's like, well, do you have any of the stuff? I'm like, no, but I will have it by Thursday. I'll have it when we start. And he's like, are you going to sell anything on the back end of it? And I said, yes. And he said, what's it going to be? I said, I have no idea. So then over the next few days, we put that together, and we were thinking of that a really good home run. I think our projection was a really good home run would be that we made about 140, I think it was 148,000 from doing this challenge thing. And we ended up, we spent $9,700, and we ended up doing about $870,000 in that week. And I was like, this is pretty crazy. And what the hook ultimately was, or just to answer your question in the most long way possible, is that I wanted to think about, like, what do people want right now that's related to this thing that I was teaching that will get them fast results, and that also speaks to what's going on in the world. And so one of the things that I know is important to me, and like the people that I want to work with, ethics are important. And so I was thinking the best thing that I can think of to grow a business the fastest in any environment is mergers and acquisitions, to buy other companies or other assets. And so we're in a crisis right now. There's going to be a lot of those for sale because there's a lot of businesses that would be failing. The average business in America had about 27 days of cash flow at that time. So it's like, if this thing goes on as it ultimately has, this is going to be really challenging for a lot of people. And we can help them by acquiring the businesses and putting them with other businesses. And this could be a really good thing. So we ended up coming up with Ethical Profits in Crisis, which is epic. And rather than teaching all 4 parts of my leverage, exit, grow, scale, it's just teaching in much more depth one of the concepts, which is M&A, particularly what we call micro M&A, meaning companies that are under 10 million in value or assets. And so I had, over the years, I've been buying and selling companies, since my early 20s. So over that time, and I started in real estate when I was 18. So I had all kinds of strategies for not coming out of pocket to buy these companies. And so we said, what can I give them? Well, I can give them the strategies that I've got for not doing that. And at the time I had 159, and during this shutdown, there's been another 57 that we've developed as a result of the creativity needed to make deals happen in this environment. So I got 216 ways to acquire businesses with no money out of pocket. And that was what ultimately seemed like the best thing to offer. And since then, we're just under 4 million in sales of that program. We've had about 20,000 people opt in. We've had about 6,000 people go through it. It's really fun, and it's inexpensive. It's $55 for people to learn everything they need to know, which is another philosophical thing that I would say to anybody that's selling any kind of information thing is, don't hide the ball. Give them everything that they need to do the thing that you promised them they will do. And I say that at the end. When I say at the end of the challenge, hey, I hope you've had a great time. You now have everything that you need to know. how to do these deals. If you would like additional support and would like to learn more in-depth ways to do this, then, I invite you to come do that. But I want people, and I do have people doing deals during this 5-day challenge. So they're like, man, I bought a company, I bought a software company, I bought a Facebook group. And so that makes you feel good. It makes them feel good. It keeps everybody very happy. But it also offers the people who want to invest more in themselves to have more in depth the ability to get that. And I think that's the way to teach that. I've talked to sales people who are like, why do you can't give them how to do this? Nobody will buy the other thing. I'm like, then I suck. If they don't want more, then I suck. But I'm not gonna kind of trick them into coming in and then say, oh, and if you want the one thing that makes this work,
Well, this is kind of self-serving because I found you through the Epic Challenge, and I went through the challenge, and it kind of brought awareness into my industry of opportunities. And I've done many acquisitions from the challenge.
Oh, that's awesome.
I started thinking about that as a growth lever for our audience. Most of our audience is personal injury attorneys.
Okay.
Which has a couple added challenges, and I kind of want to throw you a curveball for our audience listening, because with legal, you've got the non-compete, you've got most of the firms are branded around the owner's name, and then you also have personal injury where maybe you don't know when it's not like a business attorney who works with a book of business that's recurring. What might be some ideas, and this is really on the spot, I know we didn't talk about this, that a personal injury law firm could look at when thinking about acquisitions?
Yeah. So as you know, since you've been through the program, I have a kind of a wheel of opportunity for existing businesses. The easiest thing that most people think of when they think about an acquisition is a competitor. And certainly attorneys can acquire other law firms. I did it when I practiced law. That is a super easy way to acquire additional business. But then beyond that, I have a wheel of the lowest hanging fruit for best opportunities that I think will help the business. So I start thinking about, number one, we would like to have more leads. So if we'd like to have more leads in our core business, and our core business is a personal injury attorney, then where does my ideal customer profile hang out? Who's already aggregated the attention and eyeballs of that ideal customer profile? So what I would then do is I'd say, who are my best customers in my PI practice? And maybe I would find that there's slip and fall, auto accident is big. What are some of my specialties? Maybe I specialize in motorcycle accident injuries. Then looking at that data of who's my most profitable in terms of margin and time customer, and what do they do? Then I'd say, let's say that I find that it's the motorcycle cases, because I get to sue all the manufacturers, and the other side. And well, then what I would do is I'd say, then what's the media that's already aggregated the attention and eyeballs of not injured motorcyclists? But if you're a motorcyclist, chances are pretty good you're going to be injured at some point in the not too distant future. That's my experience with motorcycles, right? So then I would say, okay, what's the media that motorcyclists or motorcycle enthusiasts are hanging out at, and how do I acquire that media so that then I can place my offer and build a brand in that media? So then I'd go and say, okay, what are the Facebook motorcycle groups? What are the big Instagram channels for motorcycles that, I'm probably not going to get to buy Harley Davidsons, but I might be able to, acquire, Joe, the cruiser, who likes to cruise down the beach on Highway 101 in California. And I'd start looking at podcasts. I'd start looking at newsletters. There are smaller groups than, is it Glamis that's like one of the big, motorcycle things where people gather together. I'd be looking at, can I acquire events like that? And then I've got the media. Now I own the eyeballs, and I've got more leads coming to me. If I've got shows, podcasts, events, groups, all of that kind of stuff, then, and I have someone posting content in there, not, hey, been injured on your motorcycle, call me, right. But instead, hey, know your rights. A lot of times I can't believe, here's a story of what happened, and people ride up on your tail and don't realize this. And so here's some ways to, to get the space that you need to be safer, and build that content marketing program across all of your media. Now you're the top of mind choice, right? And you can, of course, also say, been injured ever so often, right?
Right.
So that to me would be the leads source of that. Then the next place would be infrastructure. So can I acqui-hire, meaning who already has relationships with the people who are most likely to refer me business, and who can help me scale my business in the best way? Who's already done that? And then I'd make a list of those people. And I don't know what the biggest referral sources might be. I know that like EMTs are a source of referrals. So you don't have to chase the ambulance. If the ambulance basically says, hey, you've been hurt, if you need any help, call Joe. And then if it's legal and ethical, you can pay them a referral. If it's not legal and ethical, then you don't have to do that. Again, just get in front of that group of people in a way that you can provide value to them. Then I go over to products and services and say, what are the products and services that my injured people are going to need? Well, we will probably need a court reporter. We'll probably need a physical therapist. We'll probably need, a rehabilitative surgeon, whatever. And then I'd say, what of those things can I buy so that I can say to my customers, hey, I own these things and you need these things. So I recommend you go to this physical therapist. By the way, I have an ownership interest in it, etc. Then you go down to supply and distribution. How do I consolidate my supply and distribution chain to increase margin? By the way, we got leads from acquiring media. We got infrastructure increased by acqui-hire through the team and resources acquisition. We get more revenue and profits and sales and customers from buying additional products and services and creating cross-sell opportunities. Now we're down in supply and distribution. If I can consolidate my supply and distribution chain, then I increase my margin. So what's your supply and distribution chain in a law firm? Well, let's say you're doing content marketing. Maybe you are buying content services from a digital marketing agency. So I would go buy a digital marketing agency. Then I would be their best customer. Maybe I'd bring that in-house, but maybe I'd offer those services to other people too. And then I'd say, okay, that's one of my suppliers. One of my other suppliers might be a court reporting service, might be a 3D modeling service to recreate those accident scenes and things like that. And so I'd look at acquiring those things. And then in terms of distribution, you are kind of the end distribution agent in the law firm thing. So the only thing I would say is, what's the aftercare things that they might benefit from going after, or are there any related things that they might do? But that's not really in my direct supply chain. So not a lot of distribution things there. And then IP, what can I do in terms of acquisition of IP assets to increase my business? That's pretty easy. If we think about content, heck, anybody that's been injured, let's say I do the motorcycle thing and I want to get content to put up in my lead machine because I bought that media. Now I'm going to say, okay, who's already created a big body of content about motorcycle safety or interesting motorcycle things or anything else? And then I'll go start buying that content. So now I've got all of the leads and infrastructure and margin and cross-selling opportunities that I want. That's how I'd grow that business.
Well, we're going to have to add that in the show notes and just really expand on that. I think that's incredible. I was, taking those big fixed costs in the content and turn them into profit centers. I was thinking even, your accounting costs and things like that, and insurance. Maybe instead of working with an insurance company, you buy an insurance company. And
expert witnesses also.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I was going to ask about is, you talked about these different levers and maybe you covered most of them, but you have this tool called the 585 multiplier tool. Mm-hmm. And what are some of those concepts in that tool?
Yeah. So 585 is about increasing valuation, reducing expenses, and increasing lead flow. So in terms of increasing valuation for a law firm, it's difficult if you're in PI to create monthly recurring revenue or MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue, or ARR, which is annual recurring revenue. In a PI situation, the only way I could think of to do it would be to offer some sort of prepaid legal, where maybe you create a legal plan for all of your motorcycle people that, that's one of your avatars, one of your target markets, and you've acquired media there, and you say, okay, well, what if I offered legal defense or legal services that allowed these people, if something happened to them, to not have to pay on a contingency basis and give away a third of their settlement. I don't know if it would be profitable or not, so this isn't necessarily the best idea, but within the constraints of the model that we've got, it's something we can talk about. So then I'd say, well, if they're willing to pay $20 a month or $10 a month, then maybe I can fund my payment through hourly work. And I can do that by either acquiring an insurance company or contracting with an insurance company that basically the premiums to have the insurance company pay my legal fees will be covered in the event that somebody here has an accident. And what I'm paying the premium to make that work out for is less than what I'm charging them in the aggregate. So maybe I've got 10,000 people paying me $10 a month. I've got $100,000 a month coming in. The premium that I have to pay to the insurance company to pay my legal fees if one of those people gets injured is $30,000 a month. I'm making $70,000 a month profit. That might work. Now, every month, I've got $100,000 coming in minus the cost over there. So I've got $70,000 in recurring revenue every month. So that's $840,000 in recurring revenue every year. Let's say that a law firm sells for 5x. 5 times its EBITDA or profit. So that'd be $420,000 times 10, right? It'd be $4.2 million. 840,000 divided by 2 times 10 times 5. So, so that'd be a way to increase the valuation of my practice. Then on the expense side, we talked about it a little bit, but I think about making a list of all of your top expenses and saying, what are the opportunities for me to turn these into profit centers? And it might not necessarily be through acquisition here. It could simply be a change of how you're doing things. So let's say that paralegals are one of your biggest expenses as the attorney, and you're paying your paralegal $60,000 a year, and they're working currently at a capacity of 70% of total. So that means that I'm getting $42,000 of benefit because 70% of their $60,000 salary leaves me wasting $18,000 a year. So maybe I could have that paralegal provide paralegal services to other attorneys, and maybe I could even have them provide those services for a discounted rate to attorneys who could be referral sources to me. And that's a benefit that I give to people who refer me business. And in most states, and not giving legal advice, but most states, it's okay for attorneys to have referral fees back and forth with each other, even if it's not okay to have them with non-attorneys. So that might be a benefit that you could provide to those attorneys for that paralegal service capacity that you don't have. Now you've turned that in, and maybe it's a discounted rate. So now you've got that 18,000 in your paralegal used completely wasted before now becomes zero waste. And maybe you recover that $18,000 because you're billing those out at hourly instead of at a salaried rate. Everybody's happy. And now if you also can do it at a discounted rate, you cover that 18K, maybe that 18K becomes a profit center. And now that $60,000 cost center is making you $100,000 a year. So now you're at a 40,000 profit off of that one paralegal times maybe you've got 8 paralegals, right? Now that starts to add up. But then also you've created a new referral source because you've got relationships with your key referral people who you're giving discounted services, but still making a profit. That'd be an example of that. And then last but not least would be the bolt-on business. So 585 is that you can 5X the value of your business by getting recurring revenue, because typically strong recurring revenue businesses are worth about 5 times what non-revenue recurring businesses are. By the 80 and 585 is that you could reduce your expenses by 80% or more simply by turning several of the top ones into profit centers. And then the last thing, the 5 of 585 at the end, is to 5X your lead flow. So how do you do that? That's taking things that you have that are your superpowers, that you're really good at, and making an inventory of those things and then saying, could I take these things that I'm really good at and provide them to third-party businesses that don't have that capability? And maybe one of those things, just to use the example of the paralegals again, would be that you could actually create an entire paralegal business that you bolted on to somebody who already has a law firm and needs paralegal help, or a paralegal agency, right? So that's kind of how that stuff works.
Yeah, and that's immediately where my brain was going with the paralegal situation. Is some businesses, they can't hire the full-time staff, and there's different, their lead flow is so volatile, so different, especially in these times where they don't have to, they can't carry the full-time staff, and they need to throttle back their capacity, and they could work with a model like that.
Yeah, and what I'd probably do is I would acquire a paralegal recruitment company so that I could be on the top of the funnel, get the best paralegals, have the recruitment business be a profit center of its own, take the best ones for myself, and then fractional service them out to the people who don't want to hire full time. And so then I've got 3 ways to benefit from that.
Yeah, and that's incredible. You know what? I kind of want to transition over to your podcast just for a moment.
Yep.
So, back in March, you launched the Business Lunch podcast, and you had an episode titled "What to Do to Survive and Thrive in the Next 90 Days."
Uh-huh.
With hindsight being everything that's happened in the last 7 months and the future uncertainty of COVID, what would be your best advice to businesses, especially attorney listeners, over the next 90 days?
I think that the biggest thing that I've learned from this is that all business right are doing significantly better now than they were 9 months in, 7 months in? I don't know how many months we are in now. April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Yes. So let's call it 8 months in. So what the biggest lesson that I have found is that, not surprisingly, freezing and doing things the way you've always done them is going to not serve you well in a rapidly changing environment. And we have a continually evolving environment with what's going on right now, because cases spike and then they go down, and now they spike again, and we don't know. They shut everything down, and they did payday PPP loans and support for business. Then they're not going to do any more support. It's like there's all over the place. The government doesn't know what it's doing, and we don't even know who the government is at this point in our conversation. So that being the case, it's clear that you need to think about, how do I create a change-ready company, a uncertainty-friendly company? And the way that you do that is that you have a process for continually analyzing the data that is the performance of your company, and continually looking out into the market to see who's doing what, and then thinking about, looking at what they're doing, what else could I do to innovate across everything? And so then I think it comes down to, what in the business, it seems like right now, because I can't say people aren't going out, because they are, even though they're not supposed to, right? So you see what's going on in terms of themes right now, and so what I might be thinking doing is, if I'm in personal injury, is there the potentiality of liability for people who haven't been liable before for new form of personal injury? Is it possible that bars and restaurants have exposure to lawsuits from people for exposure to COVID because of non-enforcement of legally mandated policies? So then I'd start creating content for those people. If I was in defense, I would be creating content for them saying, you need to think about this. And we've got a free kit that we're handing out to all restaurants and bars of, what needs to be posted and everything, so that you can best have the best opportunity to position yourself to defend a case that might come. I'd never say avoid liability, because that sounds like a promise, right? If I was on the plaintiff side, then it would probably be, I'd be looking at, what are the opportunities for me as a result of this to help people who have been negatively impacted by careless transmission or contracting this thing, and how can I create a helpline center to get them the information they need, and then I would be top of mind in the event that something happened where they needed care. Particularly, I would say, for medical malpractice, in terms of how are nursing homes? Gosh, that seems like a huge category right now. If I was looking for new business, I'd be all over providing content to families and occupants of nursing homes about their rights and how to protect yourself and all that kind of stuff, it would be clearly coming from my law firm. And then obviously if anybody has a challenge because they get mistreated or something like that, then I would be top of mind. So that I'd probably be looking in the PI world at those things. I'd definitely be doing the acquisitions that we talked about a minute ago though, too, because I think right now, a lot of those legal support companies are hurting, and because courts have been closed in different places, so business might not be as robust for them as it was in the past, and they might be going through challenges where they don't want to, it's too uncertain what's going on right now. Uncertainty is your friend here, right? Mm-hmm. You're going, hey man, I know in that legal expert business or that 3D modeling business, you've been having a hard because it's been closed, and so people, so you ever thought of selling that? I'd be thinking about acquiring that kind of stuff as well. So what are my new markets? How do I serve and access those new markets in an ethical way, as opposed to going to the nursing home going, anybody been hurt? And then I'd be thinking about that acquisition wheel that we talked about.
I think that's tremendous advice. And I see many of my top clients doing that, creating the nursing home content, creating the coronavirus-based content. And they're doing really well with it. The other thing that I was just thinking about is, putting those feelers out there. I know myself personally, when I started doing that, I didn't get maybe the direct person, but I started getting, oh, hey, here's John. He needs, he's looking for someone. He's wanting to sell his business. And
right.
So for attorneys is probably the best marketplace, just in standard marketplace. Would it be, I think it's buy, biz, sell. Is that correct?
No, I don't think so. I recommend staying away from those sites. It's the suppliers that you've already got, the people, ask your network, that kind of stuff, particularly in the law. You and your, associates, your co-counsels, your partners, and your colleagues are going to have much, much better knowledge about that than going to some biz buy sell site or something like that.
Right. Absolutely. So switching over to personal. So I've cruised your Instagram, and I know you're a big wine connoisseur.
I am.
So what's your go-to when it comes to wine? Because myself, the only wine I can even think of is Yellowtail, which I know they sell a lot
Yellowtail.
of. But...
yeah, Yellowtail. I actually make a nice bottle of wine. For me, it wouldn't I'll go first. What are the categories that I go to? The categories that I generally lean towards are French white Burgundy, and Napa and French Cabernet and Cabernet blends. So Bordeaux blends, and particularly Saint-Estèphe, Saint-Emilion in terms of France, and in terms of California, Pritchard Hill and Mount Veeder. And then if I go to brands, I would say there are so many in the, Ramenais, Coche Drury, Leflaive. Those are some of my top white Burgundy loves. And in terms of, which is a Chardonnay grape, by the way, and in terms of the Bordeaux blends, I really like, and the cabs, I like 100 Acre, Colgan, Abreu, Futo, and Scarecrow. See if I'm missing one. Oh, Bond, Harlan. Those are some of my top Lacoya. I have a lot.
Wonderful. So in our closing segment here, Roland, we do a rapid 3 for 3. It's just a quick fire round. So just kind of go from your gut, and it's final 3 questions. So first, what is your top search engine optimization tip?
Oh gosh. It's really my top search engine optimization tip is that the smartest guy that I know in SEO is Neil Patel, and how Neil Patel got to be such a search engine optimization expert is that he went and identified all the keywords that people were searching for search engine optimization. And then he went and bought all of the blogs and media and websites that already ranked for the things that he wanted to rank for. So he instantly ranked for all those things as he acquired those, and he's become one of the leading SEO guys out there. So if I wanted to rank high for anything in terms of PI, then I would look at what are my best performing keywords and go see who owns them now and can I buy them from somebody else. If it's a law practice that owns it, can I buy the law practice? If it's a content service, even better, I'll just buy that content service. And then I'll now own all of the keywords, and my competitors will be like, how the heck did that happen so quick?
Wonderful. And which entrepreneur do you admire the most?
Boy, I really would be hard for me to say a single person, but I really admire Sarah Blakely for her ability to not only invent something, but so many inventors invent something and then it gets licensed away, which isn't a bad play. But she did the hard thing. She went and invented and then sold, literally standing on the floor at Neiman Marcus, getting people to buy her stuff. And then Spanx is the brand. And then went and vertically integrated through manufacturing. And I mean, reinvented an industry. So I think that is really, really impressive. And I think she's a super impressive person. If I have to pick one right now, that's like the American dream entrepreneur is, I come up with something, I find a need and fill it. I find something that's not working right. Turns out men are making all of women's garments. Who'd have thought that they wouldn't think about things that women would think? I reinvent the whole thing. I don't license it away. I go in the store, I get the contracts, I sell it, and I build a business and get a net worth of $1 billion plus. Completely on my own. That's impressive.
Just incredible. And I there's some exciting stories about her, just interesting stories about her, even when they got the spots to sell the Spanx, moving them near the counter, near the transactions occurred.
And she's just super nice. I've had the chance to, to sit down and chat with her, and she's just, and her husband, Jesse Itzler as well, just two of the nicest people in the world on top of being crazy, mad, awesome entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And final question here. What is the next thing on your bucket list?
On my bucket list, personally, is to go to Antarctica. I'm at 156 countries and counting. I want to see them all. I want to, put my feet and spend time in them all. But I only have 6 continents, and it seems kind of dumb that I haven't been to Antarctica. So it was actually on my list this year for February. This coming February, which I guess is next year. But then they shut everything down. So it's probably going to be the year after that.
Awesome. Well, Roland, thank you so much for sharing your expert advice. And we just really appreciate you coming on the show. And thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.